Hello, friends. Welcome to My Good Woman, the podcast for new and future female leaders. I'm your host, Dawn Andrews, a happily married hockey mom and the founder and CEO of Free Range Thinking Business Strategy Consulting. Grab a seat at the table with me each week for candid conversations with culture-shifting, glass-ceiling-busting, trailblazing women leading impactful enterprises. We discuss what makes them tick, how they get it all done, and actionable strategies to help you lead with confidence and grow the visibility, reach, and revenue of your business. We're classy ladies, but we don't bleep the swear words. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, my good woman. Do you ever wonder to yourself, can I really be successful if I'm kind to others? The answer is yes. Being kind in business doesn't mean you don't stand up for yourself or that you're a pushover. In fact, being kind helps you stand out. And I have a very fun conversation for you today. My good woman, Kat Jones, has built her company, Motive PR, with kindness front and center. Motive PR partners with digital brands to deliver results-driven strategies with invaluable collaboration. Their clients have included Critical Role, Felicia Day, E3, Blind Squirrel Games, and more. And she's a Marvel alum. This 10-time veteran of San Diego Comic-Con was also named one of the top PR pros by Business Insider 3 years in a row. Today, we geeked out about believers who help you flip the switch from having big dreams to being in business. That moment when you realize that you really do know what you're doing. Michelle Obama, nerds, geeks, superfans, Mrs. Betterway, Slimers, and go-to karaoke songs, and so much more in the realm of kindness and business. Enjoy my conversation with Kat Jones. Kat Jones, welcome to the My Good Woman podcast. I'm so delighted to have you here today.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to be here. This is a pleasure. I'm usually on the other side of it. I'm usually the one booking for my clients to be on podcasts. So this is surreal, but I'll embrace it. And I'm very excited about the combo.
Well, I just want to say you're wearing it well. So for the listeners, if you can't see the visual, Kat has a gloriously chic bob going on and some big glasses and great art behind her. And I feel underdressed, but very excited for the conversation.
I can reciprocate and say you look absolutely lovely as well. I did wash my hair for this, which is like a miracle. So I feel pretty bright and shiny right now.
These are the things to look forward to in the Zoom age. You're like, okay, what do I really have to do this week where I can wash my hair? And you know what? I want to say thank you. Thank you for making that effort. I feel very special and honored because I did the same for you. I even curled it. There's some curl.
I see that. Yeah, no, I look at the week ahead and I'm like, okay, which days do I need to wash my hair given what I'm doing the next day? And this was one of those days where I was like, all right, I am doing this. It's going to be on camera. Let's wash the hair.
There's a great episode, Two Dope Queens. I don't know if you know that show and or podcast, Phoebe Robinson and Jessica Williams. And they, as their sort of swan song episode for that podcast, they interviewed Michelle Obama, which was amazing. She talked about being in the White House and having up and down days. So up days were like, put it all together, do the hair. One of her main goals in being in the White House was to make sure that she got out of being the first lady and still had hair because of all of the styling and prepping and being ready for events. She talked about those down days when she was walking around in her like tank top and cut off shorts and no makeup and just living her life. And then days when she had to make sure she had a good wedge on so she didn't trip coming off of a plane and had her hair done. So I was appreciating it.
Honestly, I not only appreciate that, I've actually had moments where sometimes I work with talent or I work with folks who need to be on camera a lot and things like that. And I have a genuine gratefulness that I don't have to do that on a regular basis. 80% of the time, I don't have to really dress up and have to do that. I appreciate it when I do, but like having to be in the spotlight all the time and having that kind of eye on you, I'm sure there's a scrutiny and you always have to be put together. And I appreciate that I don't. I am mentally, emotionally in interactions, but like physically, man, If I have to take more than a half hour to an hour max to get ready for certain circumstances, I'm like, nope, nope.
Ready to shave the head, get permanent makeup, and have a black turtleneck like Steve Jobs and call it a day.
Oh my God, if Sinead O'Connor can pull it off, right? Or Natalie Portman, V for Vendetta, I'm not kidding. I've had moments where I was like, I might have the right shape.
So let's talk about that for a minute. You're in the PR game. You own Motive PR, and your company's what, 4 years old now? You started in 2018?
Yes, public relations. End of 2018. Actually started in a bit of a whirlwind. I started to lay the groundwork of wanting to do this and really feeling confident and comfortable. It took me months to get to the point where I was like, all right, I'm actually doing this because I'm very much a planner. But I will say the moment I chose to flip the switch was all in 1 month. I got married, we decided to move, and I launched Motive. It was December 2018 and then officially hit the ground running in January. It feels like a long time, but it also doesn't feel like a long time that I've been doing this.
From everything that I researched and read, you've been in this game a long time, just not specifically in your own business a long time.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I honestly thought I was going to be the in-house PR person for my entire life. If you would have asked me 5 or 6 years ago, "Kat, are you going to launch your own PR firm? Are you going to go off and do your own thing?" I probably would immediately say, "Oh, absolutely not." Like I'm meant for having a structured job within security. I always had that because I'd always been in a very secure role. And then something switched, whether it was encouragement from others or whether it was I do actually have a memory of starting to like look around and see different people or brands or companies. The wheels would turn. Oh, I could do like the idea of what a PR strategy could be for them. I would see what they would be doing for PR and I would be like, oh, no, I wouldn't do it that way.
Mm.
And as I started doing that, even when I was an in house PR person, I was doing that a lot with external companies. And I was like, Kat, you know what you're doing. It was this aha moment where that insecurity or lean back in the room when you're in a conference room where it's, oh, I don't, can I, and I might have an idea. I don't know. Maybe that kind of shed. And I was like, that was early 2018. And I was like, I know what I'm doing. And that's when I started to lay the groundwork of what Motive might be.
It's so interesting. So I call that moment the Mrs. Betterway moment. When you start to look around and you, like, for instance, you're hired, you're working inside a corporation, you're handling their PR, but you're looking at other brands outside and seeing how they're doing what they're doing in your space, and you have your better way. When you start to have the Mrs. Betterway moments, chances are you're headed towards an entrepreneurial path. So it could be entrepreneurial in that you leap and start your own thing, or it could be entrepreneurial in that you really push for an advancement in your position to where you have more ownership and strategic decision making capabilities inside the company that you have. But once you start having that Mrs. Betterway moment, it's the beginning of realizing that you own your experience from your whole life. All the different things that you've done, it starts to coalesce. And that's what has you saying, why are they doing it that way? I have a better way for that. So it sounds like you had your Mrs. Betterway
Oh,
moment.
I love that. Again, because I like to be like a team player. So there's a part of me that's like, I don't know if it's a better way, but it's definitely a way that is different and but I like Miss Better Way, I'll take that.
Yeah. So since you said you're a planner, I would love to hear for all the planners that are out there that are listening, I would love to hear what was the plan like? What happened once you started to see that this is something you wanted to do? What did you prepare? How did you plan to make that exit and start your own thing?
Oh man, honestly, it's a whole lot of documents. Started just putting my thoughts on paper of like what a mission statement might be. What would my ideal client look like? Who could that client list be? It was documents and spreadsheets where I was just putting my thoughts on paper. Because in my world, the only way that I would be confident enough to take the leap is if I could look at multiple things that I had created in front of me, whether it was a mission statement, building out a website, like I built my own website, like curating a list of potential clients, starting to like connect with them and seeing if I branched off and did my own thing, would you want to work with me? Just kind of those casual conversations. And if the responses were yes or maybe, it was like the confidence started to continue to build. Actually, the way in which I thought of the company name, I knew so many people who would be like, Cat Jones PR, that's a great name. But I never really wanted it to be my name because then it's strictly tied to me. It doesn't have the ability to grow into something past me or further than me, whatever that might look like. And so I was at a sushi restaurant with my husband, and we were just talking about it. And I was like, the first question I ever ask people when building out a PR strategy is like, what's your motivation? What's your goal? And then he goes, motivation, PR, motive. And I was like, but we both thought motive PR. Like, I got to give him credit a little bit because he helped me with that. And then I was like, but let's be like sassy and fancy and take off the E. For real, to answer your question, from about February up until December, I just put thoughts on paper. And I have my Google Drive right now. If I point to my early days Motive PR folder, it's full of where I put my thoughts on paper of what my goals, my objectives, my timeline. I put together a timeline of the first 3 months, first 6 months, first 9 months, what I'd want to achieve, what I'd want to accomplish. Then it was maybe September timeframe that I ended up telling my boss, like, hey, I'm going to branch off. I'm going to do my own thing. So the company I was with, full disclosure, they were called Defy Media, and they were a big digital umbrella company that owned a bunch of digital brands like Smosh and
Okay.
Smosh Games and Clever, these really well known YouTube channels and things that have a large presence online. And I was working with a lot of those folks, and I really loved it. And so I brought up to him, I was like, here's the deal. How about you hire me in January when I launch Motive to just oversee PR for Smosh as my client or Clever as my client, like these individual small brands. I was like, you don't have to pay for overhead for a VP of PR. I explained the value and he was like, great, let's do it. Unfortunately, cut to November and the company folded. So thank God I laid that groundwork. Then I had a little bit from November to December, I was able to actually put more effort into planning my wedding and stuff. But yeah, that was what I ended up doing. Just lots of documents that laid out where I wanted the company to go and what I valued and mission statement and website and all that fun stuff.
Well, that's gold for anybody listening that has an entrepreneurial inclination. What I appreciate about what you did was that you emptied your head out and it put you in a position to reflect back. Is what I'm seeing workable? Can I get somewhere with this? It put you in a position to see something real and tangible. So even though it wasn't a business just yet, transitioning it just from thoughts and feelings into something either digital or physical makes a difference, which builds confidence. And then it puts you in a position to be able to share it with other people. And once you can share it and actually workshop it with people and get some reflection back, and if somebody is not into it, it doesn't mean it's not a good idea, but there's maybe something about it that needs to be adjusted a little bit. And so you can continue to refine it before you have to take the risk and ankle your job. So I love the process. Thanks for sharing what you did there.
Of course. I think the early days of having that aha moment of I could do this, being able to then reflect back and just have it reiterated in paper, because it's easy to just say that, but then when you put it all down and you reflect on it, it almost just reiterates like, "Oh yeah, not only can I do that, I am doing it and I did it."
It's the beginning of coaching yourself. You are your first coach. The next part is making the transition, and you set it up really nicely to be able to consult for some of the brands that you were already working with. Did that carry you through to the first client that you signed on your own? Do you still have those clients? What does the actual revenue generation look like for you and your business?
I was very lucky and grateful that within the first couple months, I had a few clients. And honestly, when I first started Motive, I didn't even think about the concept of scaling, of growing. It was like, this is good. I want to work with people and companies that I dig, and that's it. I didn't think about building it into a PR firm. So for the first handful of months, I was very flexible with how I approached projects. So I wasn't like, it's got to be retainer or it's got to be project. I talked to people and I dug what they were doing and I was like, how do you want to work together? What would make it easiest for you? And I'll work around that. For the first, I'd say 6 months, it was working with anywhere between 3 and 7 clients on average, but ranging in project size. I'm so lucky because I have just a couple clients. I work in digital media. So, just to give a little background, I'm sure all your listeners probably know the wild west of digital media. But for me to be going on almost 4 years and still have a couple of those same clients does say something within the digital media landscape.
For sure.
I'm very grateful to those handful of clients that I still work with. I do like the approach that I had that I still keep, which is I'll work with you. You tell me what it is that your goals are for PR, whether it's project based or it's long term, or you don't even know. You just know you want to get your name out there. And I'll figure out what can be done and put it into a scope or put it into a potential partnership.
Who are your clients, just so that people understand the type of folks that work with Motive?
Broadly speaking, we focus on a lot of digital media brands, companies, and individuals. So, whether that's content creators, the people that you see on YouTube or Twitch or Instagram, or actual companies within that space. So, companies that oversee those brands, to emerging technologies. We've launched a handful of apps, even hardware and software, and then also video games. So, we actually just got back from San Diego Comic Con, which obviously isn't video game related, but it's in the geek nerd fandom. And that was my 10th San Diego Comic Con. That right there, if I could say our clients live within the San Diego Comic Con sphere, that's the perfect way of putting it. And also my passion. I love the space. I love the people within the space, geek nerd fandom, video games, communities in those worlds is really what we focus on. We work with this creator, Dylan LeMay, Blind Squirrel Games, Maestro Media. They're small to large, different scale, but I love it.
That's so great. So I have 2 teenage boys here. We're huge Marvel fans. Backwards, forwards, all the movies twice and on Sundays, and every bit of the Star Wars universe has been explored. We've done it all, got it all, so I can appreciate the geek nerd fandom place, and you'd probably be able to have a pretty intelligent conversation with them about all the games that they love to play too. My youngest is super into Elden Ring right now. I don't know if you know anything about that one, but yeah, I'm starting to learn about it. I was gonna say ask who your favorite client type is, but we know it's the Comic-Con sphere.
Oh, yeah. Actually, fun fact, I used to work at Marvel. Boop, boop. Actually, I will say the best way to explain the type of companies and people I love to work with is anybody who's challenging the way that people consume entertainment, which a lot of the geek nerd fandom sphere really does, because most of the time it starts with a single IP, where it's where we might used to be a comic book, or we might used to be like a live show. And then they just continue to expand all the ways in which their fans and community can engage with them, whether it's then they make a podcast, or then they create another show, a movie, an app, or a board game, right? There's just so many ways. I love that. I love being a part of that when it's something first and foremost so simple, and then it expands into this universe of all the different ways a community can engage with that IP or that brand.
I love that you're including the fans in that conversation. That it's not just brand extension, like how many more ways can I put this out as a product for sale or a product for consumption, but it's how can I put this content out there and this conversation out there so that it connects and continues to build community.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, like one of the clients we work with, they listen to the fans first and foremost before they decide to take the leap into other merch or manufacturing ideas, which I think is just so important, and actually is often a big oversight with companies where they just, either the C level or whatever just go, let's just make that because I like it and that seems like a popular thing, instead of actually using platforms on social media to like engage with the fans and really try and understand what it is that they care about, and then expand from there. But it can be like a delicate balance, because you don't want there to then end up being an assumption from the fan base that whatever they say goes. Did you get what I'm saying? It has to be a delicate balance.
To me, it's an evolution in business thinking because the way things used to be before is we made this thing, we push it out to you, and then we market to create your need, your interest. We tell you what the conversation is that you need to be in that then has you turn around and buy our thing or engage with our thing. This is the next evolution in business with social media being a little bit more mature to be thoughtful and considerate of the people that actually have chosen to invest their dollars with you and to consider them in the conversation of what they develop next. I think it's great that you're in that space and helping to foster that way of thinking when it comes to business.
Again, it challenges me because, for example, a great platform that does this, that automatically, when I say it, you're going to be like, oh, it's that one where people have to give money to it up front and it doesn't. Kickstarter, right? Kickstarter, when I have conversations, especially with the media, I totally understand that their first question mark is, I don't want to cover like a Kickstarter because it's not proven and who knows, it might not be funded. And that's totally fine. I understand that. But a platform like Kickstarter is actually a really great example of what we were just talking about, where a lot of the times companies go or brands go to Kickstarter not to get the thing funded because they don't have money to be able to fund it themselves, but to allow the fans to interact with and contribute to and engage with whatever it is they're building from the very beginning of product development. Companies that will actually, okay, sure, you sign up for this Kickstarter at the exact price point that the product would end up being in the long run and not anymore. I appreciate that. I work with some companies who do that. And then from the very beginning, every month they're
Hmm.
like, we're doing this. What do you think? Give us your feedback. And then they continue to evolve it and develop it based on that feedback. I think that's great. That's also what's interesting about platforms like Kickstarter or Indiegogo or whatever that might have a bit of a interesting reputation in that people just assume they're like, take my money. And if it doesn't get funded, oh, it's more, if you look at it like that with some companies that do that, I think it shifts the perspective on those platforms.
For sure. Here's the thing, there are 8 billion people on this planet. Unless you are a Coke or a Pepsi with a massive marketing budget to reach all the people all the time about all the things, you do start with a small organic little nucleus of people and then you build and grow from there. So unless you got the venture funds or something else to hit the ground running and shoot the cannons off so that people pay attention, I don't think there really is any other way. I was thinking about an author that I worked with that used Wattpad, a publishing platform, and they started putting out each chapter of their book that they were writing one chapter at a time. And so by the time that the book was finished, they already had the 10,000 minimum audience to connect with a publisher to be able to sell the book because they already basically pre-sold it to all the people who had followed along and contributed and said, "Oh, this is an interesting narrative. What would happen if these two characters went this way or that way?" And it's not like the author didn't have a plot in mind, but they were sort of road testing it against the group of people.
It's almost episodic. It hooks people in. Oh, what's going to happen next week? I got to sign up. That's amazing. I had not heard about that. That is wonderful.
So cool. Okay, I was stalking you, as one does when you're about to have a podcast guest. The banner at the top of your LinkedIn profile says work hard and be nice to people, which makes me so happy to see. It's always nice to work with nice people in business, people that want to create results and get things done. But you're also working in this geek nerd space. It's a male dominated space still. How do you find navigating that? Being somebody who works hard and is nice to people, but may or may not be encountering people who feel the same way. Do you bump into that a lot in the work that you're doing?
I did. I'm very grateful that I'm in a position now where if I do, I'm just like, I don't want to work with you. I don't want to put myself and my team in a position where we're dealing with difficult people for no apparent reason. And honestly, I learned that motto is so simple and it hangs above my office right now. Like it's so simple, but it goes so far because I have so many distinct memories in my early career being a woman in this space that I reflect on the way that people treated me,
Mhm.
whether or not I was a woman or not, just being a coordinator, like a lower on the food chain, for lack of a better term. And I never really understood why. So going through being young, being vulnerable, being not necessarily fully confident in what you're doing, and having people talk to you like that when they don't need to. Like, I understand being firm or if things are stressful and of course, just sometimes go off or whatever. There are certain circumstances where, sure, it's not like justified, but you go, okay, pardon my French, shit was hard, but I see where they were coming from. But I have so many memories of people just being mean for no apparent reason. And I reflect back on that and just put myself in their position and I try to think why. And I never had an answer. And so it was like, when I'm in a place where I'm going to be working with many people, whether in a role where I oversee or whatever, it's not hard. Just treat people well. Work hard, but treat people well because not only should that be second nature, it shouldn't be second nature to be a bad person. And if it is, you should probably go to therapy. You should just go to therapy anyway. Therapy's great.
Just go. It's a good idea. Yeah. Truth.
Truth, truth. But also the ripple effect it has. I'm so grateful to be working with the people that I work with. And I think that a lot of the times why people come back is sure, we have results or I have results or whatever. But it's also just enjoying who you work with is sometimes a majority of why you work with the people. I remember being at a company that shall remain unnamed and I loved what they were doing and I appreciated what they were challenging. And I really loved being there. But there was this one person who just made it so difficult to enjoy being there. And it really was the straw that broke the camel's back why I ended up leaving. And it was one single person out of an entire company. They just came in with a bad attitude all the time. And here's what's interesting, they were phenomenal at their job. They were super smart, super sharp, and they oversaw a fairly large department, all this kind of stuff. But they made everyone around them miserable. And I saw the ripple snowball effect it had on everything around them. That even if they got stuff done and even if they got it done well, everyone around them was either nervous around them and it created not a quality product around them. So that's where I got that. It remains like seriously my favorite quote of all time and probably will be until the end of time. And yeah, it's just important to me. And I think it should become second nature for people. And it's not, they need to challenge themselves.
Amen. You've created this situation now where you have your own table. So people are now invited to your table. People are hiring you for your advice, your expertise, your strategy. But how did you find your voice along the way prior to this when you were inside these companies or working with people like the person you described? I call him a slimer. Like everything that they touch leaves slime, slime on everybody else.
That's actually extremely accurate. Yeah, yeah, without them even knowing, like, they just don't even know. They just do it and then they walk.
Yeah. So, how did you find your voice? How did you find ways to speak up? Or was it simply avoidance? This is a difficult person. I'm going to stay out of their way and then I'm going to extricate myself from this and build the next thing. How did you approach difficult situations like that?
So, anybody who knows me knows, for better or worse, I'm not one who avoids difficult situations or even confrontation. I'm a deep communicator. If something is bothering me, ask my husband. It's the moment I'm just like, honey, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about this right now. And I'm like that in work. And so if there is a situation that arises, and this was even when I was younger, I just actually just watched the show last night, and there was this scene that I related to when I was younger. The show, it's called For All Mankind. I don't even know if you've seen it, but like this guy knew he needed to go to his boss and ask for that raise, but he was so nervous, but he still did it. And he still walked in there and he looked like a ball of nerves, but he still did it. And that was me earlier on. The confidence might have not been there, but I would go and I would have the conversation. Now I'm at a point where the nerves aren't really there. If I need to have that tough conversation, I will have it. But in terms of what happens next, it all boils down to what reaction I get. If the person who I'm having the conversation with is receptive and we're open to dialogue and then we're able to come to a conclusion, that's always what I hope for. And luckily, I'm in a place now where the people I work with, whether they're challenging or not, if I can have that kind of conversation, that's usually the conversation and that's usually the outcome. But in previous years, like if their reaction is like just brushing off or negative or can't even listen to me because they're just so stuck in their ways. Because again, I might be the wrong one, but at least I want to come to the table with let's talk through this because I want to hear your side too. If it's clear that they're just not open to it, that's when I go, okay, it's not worth it to me. I'm just going to step away from this situation. At least I tried. I think that's what boils down to for me is if I didn't try, I would regret it. So at least I try having the conversation and hopefully there's a resolve. But if not, and it's clear the person is not going to budge and is very close minded in the way that they want to communicate, then at least I know I tried.
For sure. Let's say you and I have something we need to discuss. How would you open that conversation? I would love to be able to give people who don't have that natural inclination to communicate or really just concerned and scared to do so, the ball and nerves example you gave, I would love to be able to leave people with a little courage. So, how would you open a difficult conversation?
I actually have a really great example. It's just a super silly example, but last month we took our very first international trip in 2.5 years to Paris, my husband and I. I was meeting him in Paris, and I got an email 2 days before my flight saying, we're excited for you to check in for tomorrow. And I was like, what? My flight's not until 2 days from now. So I immediately called customer support. I started the conversation with, hi, I'm sure you're getting a lot of difficult phone calls right now. Just very open and honest about my situation and why there's no way I can leave tomorrow. But coming at it from like a maybe I don't understand where you're coming from. Maybe I don't understand why the airlines are doing this right now. So maybe you can tell me and we could figure this out together instead of just going, there's no way I'm leaving tomorrow. You guys need to fix this, which I've heard people talk like that. And I've heard the conclusion always 90% of the time, it's sorry, sir, we can't help you. But this woman, I honestly think it was because I approached it the way I did. She was like, you know what? Let's see what we can do for you. For the next 45 minutes, she searched for flights for me. And she ended up getting me on a direct flight on the day that I was supposed to leave, which was a better flight than I had before. And so that's a really great example, obviously strange and like definitely not career focused, but it's a good example of how I approach difficult conversations. And it's not me being fake. I'm not being like, "Hi, my name is Kat Jones." And I just know that I might not know everything. And so I'm not going to go into a conversation where maybe I feel like I'm in the right and they're in the wrong, where I approach it exactly that way, because then there's a high likelihood the person's just going to shut down and not want to communicate with me, or it's going to turn into a difficult conversation. But I always think approaching it in a way that allows for the other person to feel like you're not attacking them. You're just trying to have an open and honest conversation with the goal. They have to know early on that you're trying to come to a mutual conclusion, not that you're trying to prove that they're wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the approach I have.
It sounds very seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Exactly. Yeah. That's another thing I've had to learn, right? As you could probably tell, I talk quite a bit. And so learning to listen before you speak, or not asking someone to talk and then just thinking about what you're going to say while they're talking and not listening. It's taken a while to learn that.
Well, and I appreciate that you just said it's taken a while to learn that it's not innate. Because sometimes in putting out the podcast and having these conversations with women that are accomplishing wonderful, impactful things, I really want people to understand that all of it has been a learning process for everyone, for myself, for all of my guests, that a lot of the things that any of us individually are struggling with in our continued professional development, somebody has gone through it, and it's because they were courageous, they were brave, they just decided that this is something they wanted to improve and wanted to learn. And so they've gotten better at it. It's not, you didn't shoot out the womb already good to go with difficult conversations. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. I had to have a lot of awkward, challenging, strange, and zero conclusion conversations before I realized that was probably the right path. And again, it's not 100% guaranteed perfect path. It might not work for everybody, but I know, at least in my experiences, that's the path that works for me.
Who has helped you along the way in building the business that you have, in getting you to the point that you jumped and started your own thing? And then now that you have started your own thing, who's made an impact for you?
Where do I even begin? I will start to answer that question by saying I remember being in college and in my early 20s and hated the term, it's about who you know, or something like that. Like, it's about who you know. I hated that. I was like, no, I'm an eager beaver and I can do it on my own. I don't need anybody. And I quickly learned that, not that I like to lean on people or depend on people, or, LA is the land of, like, you show up at a party and the first question people ask before even asking your name is, what do you do? Because they want to know how you can benefit them. It's
Yeah.
not through that lens, but it's be okay, be open to getting help from people, be open to seeing where that takes you and reciprocate it whenever you can. Actually, my very first job out of college was because of that, where it was a woman that my mom was friends with, her mom, and she connected me with her. And I was like, can I pick your brain on getting into marketing and PR? And one thing led to another. And she introduced me to my then soon to be boss at Marvel. It really is about that. And I'd say there are a handful of people that stand out who have been so consistent in my life in terms of mentors and friends.
Do you want to name check them? Let's give them a little whoop whoop.
Oh, for sure. The first one that comes to mind, his name is Javon Frazier, or I say Javon Frazier because one time I was at a barbecue and his mom was like, oh, it's pronounced my son's name Javon. It's Javon, even though everybody calls him Javon. And he's like, no, call me Javon. I'm like, no, your mom told me to call you Javon. So I'm calling you Javon. He's actually the CEO of one of the companies we work with now. I met him back in my Marvel days. I worked with him and for him, and he just became not only a fast friend, but somebody who challenged me. I challenged him. We work so well together. And I genuinely believe I wouldn't be where I am today in this capacity without him. So he definitely stands out. Another person that stands out, I've created like a great community around me. I'm very proud of that. Is also another person I work with now. Her name is Rachel Romero. She actually works at Critical Role. She runs all of their marketing. I met her back in 2011 when I was at Machinima, and we quickly became friends. And it was so clear we're very different in the way we approach different strategies and stuff like that, but in such a good way that really blends itself together. It's two parallel paths that just work really well together. And I consider her also a very great close friend and a mentor as well. So those are two people that really stand out to me. And I really, this is going to sound so cheesy. Oh my God. And if I was listening to this podcast, I'd eye roll after I hear this if I was a listener. But I really have to give a lot of credit to my husband, Isaac Krause, who runs a animation studio, Octopi. When we first got together almost 10 years ago, wow, which makes my brain explode a little bit, I definitely was still on that and consistently thinking I was just going to be the in-house person for the rest of my life. And he's a serial entrepreneur. Like in our entire relationship, I have only known him to run his own companies or do his own thing. So it was a couple years before I launched Motive. He planted a seed a little bit. He was the one who was like, "You should do your own thing." It was just a casual, offhand comment. And I really do think it set things in motion for me to start to really build that confidence that I eventually needed in order to jump ship.
Oh, it sounds like he's been a good thought partner for you as well. Not just because I'm your husband, but because he's an entrepreneur and he has something to bring to the table as you made the transition from inside corporate to starting your own thing.
Oh my god, when I had to start to put the pieces together, even getting this stuff for making an LLC and all the QuickBooks and finances and lawyers, all of that was just so overwhelming for me. And he had gone through it 18 times before. And so he's like, "Oh no, just reach out to this person or do this." Or he was able to like help me simplify it and really understand it in my language.
I want to make clear too, because I share that with you. My husband is an anchor and a rock for me with everything that I've done. I'm 22 years in business now, and in the early stages and throughout the entire ride, God, I used to say if he had a nickel for every time I looked across our desks look at each other like old school newsroom, like we're staring across at each other in our office. And if he had a nickel for every time I just melted down into a pile crying, like, I can't do this. It's too hard. I'm quitting. Forget it. I'm out of here. And he's like, okay. And then we'd have a conversation about it. So I also am very thankful for my husband's ongoing support and being a sounding board for me. I want to say to folks that are listening, it's also not a requirement because the takeaway is who do you have in your community or who do you have extended in your community who be a sounding board that you can pick their brain like you did with your first job. You have the resources already around you. It's just having that extra little bit of courage to be able to reach out and ask for the help, for the advice, for the perspective, whatever it might be. Everything that you need to get started is within arm's reach. You just have to put your head up and be willing to ask. So, thank you for sharing your people with me. Now I'm excited and have appreciation for them as well.
Yeah, I could shout all of them. There's so many more, but obviously time is limited. Yeah. Shout them from the rooftops because they deserve it.
So, our mutual friend gave me a few questions. She was like, "Here's what I really want you to ask her. You have been rated a top PR pro by Business Insider 3 years in a
Oh
row.
goodness.
And there also is another distinction. Just in
Funny.
2022, another group has given you accolades. What do you attribute that to? Why do you think that has happened? What you doing over there that's working?
Honestly, one of the requirements I have personally when I take on a client is that I absolutely need to make sure I can deliver for them.
And how do you know that in advance? How do you know?
Experience and just understanding the landscape and the conversations we have with media and what's topical. Because sometimes I get people coming to me wanting to get PR around a project or whatever. And I completely understand that they personally have stake in this and it's extremely valuable for them. Of course, it's probably their baby or something they've worked on. But that doesn't mean automatically that everyone else on the media front is going to feel the same way, especially nowadays. Getting top tier publications to even bat an eye at something is way more challenging than it was even 3 to 4 years ago,
Mhm.
just because we now live in an information age where Twitter and everything like that is just everybody can like it just information overload. And so when I take on a client, want to make sure that I can actually deliver for them. I've been lucky enough, thankfully, with great team members and relationships that we have and strategies that we build to be able to deliver in the way that we say we will. Because also another requirement that I always have, and again, this is for better or for worse, but it also seems to work with our clients, is I'm very transparent with our clients. When I was an in-house PR person, I worked with a ton of really phenomenal PR firms. Don't get me wrong, they were great. But there was a lot of circumstances where I would come to the table and be like, okay, we're launching this project because I was the enthusiastic person, or like that this was the project we've been working on. So I had tunnel vision and I was like, this is phenomenal. People are going to love it. We need to get X, Y, and Z publications. And a lot of the times, some of the PR firms, again, not all of them, just sometimes they'd be like, yes, absolutely, we could do that. And they wouldn't deliver. And so I would learn that they would just tell me what I wanted to hear, either to lock in the contract or because maybe they didn't know. So, of course, you don't always know. You can't always know. But I am transparent, maybe to a fault, with our clients, where I'm always grounded with what I think we can get you or what I think we can accomplish for you. And then anything above that is, oh, great, cool. It's maybe lowballing and then over delivering.
Under promise and over deliver. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that approach has really helped me. I learned how to go about it because of seeing how you shouldn't go about it. So that might be why people decided to put me in a list.
What I'm taking away is how much you're doing your job, doing your work, but you're also being observant of how work gets done and allowing yourself to learn from that and to help shape what you do and what you build moving forward. Because oftentimes it's so easy, and especially when we're scared, to want to do things the way we think other people are doing them. And all we see is the external shell. We don't see the reasons why they're acting, behaving, choosing, doing. We just see the outside results of it. But then we try on those outside results and run our businesses or our interactions that way. Unfortunately, it's a recipe for making the things that you're afraid of even worse because
Yeah.
it's not built on what's really true for you. But I appreciate that you're both doing the thing and observing the thing and learning from the thing all at the same time.
Especially, it's a service-based business, and PR especially, like I said, the tactics that people used even 2 to 3 to 4 years ago are sometimes obsolete now. So it's learning the different tools or the different ways that we could continue to evolve or change our approach and being totally open to that.
How much of that do you think you get? You're really interested in working with clients that are in emerging technologies or changing the way people are communicating. How much of those new ways of doing things in the circle of working with your clients are you learning from your clients and bringing back to your business? Is that helping to evolve and innovate for you?
That right there is like the pinnacle of my passion. If I get to work with somebody who challenges me as it relates not only to obviously the PR strategies we might use, but also, wow, you guys are doing this. I've never heard, because that also then excites me because I'm like, oh, I get to help you build your narrative and tell your story. I get to help you create a North Star. I get to help you figure out what you want people to say when they think about your brand or your company in 6 months or in a year. And that's what I'm passionate about. Full stop. Especially new things, especially things that people maybe haven't discovered or are just now discovering. And being able to help build those stories and share those stories is so exciting to me. Genuinely, like I'm such a nerd for it.
I love it. Okay, so let's go dark for a minute. You have a young business, and what I find is that usually the first 1 to 3 years of a business, and you're at the tail end of that 3-year mark. In the first 3 years of business, a lot of it is just proof of concept. Do we have something here? Can we turn it into something that makes money, whether it's a service, a product, or otherwise? And if you make it through that first 3 years and you're actually making some money and it's at least breaking even, if not turning a profit, then you're at the point in your business where you get to start growing and scaling. And I'm curious, in these first 3 years, is there a point that you were crossing your fingers or that things did not go the way you thought and you were questioning whether you were going to keep going?
I am so grateful to be able to say that I've luckily not had that moment. And I think that's also because I've been, for better or worse, very nervous about the idea of scaling and growing a company. So my overhead is me and one full-time employee currently. And then I staff up and staff down depending on the project. For example, we had a big project. We actually ran PR for E3, which was a big video game convention last year. And so we staffed up, I outsourced and worked with, I think our team at one point was like maybe 10 or 11 or something like that. And so I definitely expand and contract when necessary. But I think that's why I've been in a place where I've only really felt that making this decision to start my own thing has been the best career move I've ever made. I will tell you though, that does not mean I've always been like, yeah, this is great. This is the best idea. This is fantastic. Because I will tell you, for the first year minimum, I was terrified every day, terrified
Oh, God, yeah.
because of the fact that I wanted to deliver so much for my clients. And I didn't yet have someone working with me. I hired him at the end of, and he was just a contractor when I hired him at the end of 2019. I actually have a very distinct moment too where my husband pulled me aside and he's like, I'm worried about you. You need to get sleep. So there were tough times where it was like I was throwing my every inch into this because I wanted it to work so badly. it didn't come with doubt. It came with exhaustion. It didn't come with doubt because I did automatically see the return, and not just from a monetary perspective, but from a value perspective. I was able to point to the things that I was doing for people and go, "I'm doing this. We're doing this. Like, we're delivering." Because those first couple months, I was always pointing to the things I did at previous companies. And then after that, I could go, "No, we're doing this." And motive did it, under motive. So that's kind of my perspective on it.
So how do you keep it all going? This is one of those open your makeup bag moments. What do you use? What tools do you use? What approaches do you use? How do you keep it going when you're putting everything that you have into this thing that you're growing?
This is the simplest little thing. So, of course, I'm very, very organized with everything we do. I have a shared folder with my other teammates that includes a folder for every single one of our clients and very strategically broken out folders for very specific things. And that has been from the moment I started. Because what I didn't want, and I've seen this happen before, is someone starts to go full speed ahead in their own business, launching their own business, and then cut to 6 months later and their folders are a mess because they didn't. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
You can't see me, but I'm pointing to myself with two big fingers right now. I'm outing myself. It's all right.
I learned that the hard way in previous roles when I would start and then I'd go full speed ahead. And then all of a sudden I was 6 months into a role and I'm like, oh my God, my computer is a mess. I don't know where to find things. I don't know how to do things. So I just was like, okay, from the beginning, we are going to be organized. And so we have a very organized system in place to ensure that we know where everything is at all times. And then also, honestly, because there had been a handful of companies that I worked with previously where you couldn't get any work done during the day because you're always in meetings. And half those meetings were completely unnecessary. They might have been necessary for other people, but you were just thrown in because you're like, oh, let's make sure the PR person's there. And then you're at the end of the meeting and you're like, what did you need me here for? It's so important to me. I block out time in my calendar to just do work so that nobody puts any time in certain areas during the week so that I can actually concentrate on work. Or else I would be on calls from 9 to 5 sometimes. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I haven't been able to be productive in terms of being able to, again, it's all about delivering. It's all about delivering for the client. So that's like a tactic I have, is just blocking time to be able to actually get work done and not let everybody just throw, like, a lot of people use the Calendarly and things like that. They're like, yeah, just schedule time. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't want anybody to just randomly throw an invite on my calendar. I want to be able to have oversight on that. And then other, like, just general PR tools, we use Muckrack. That's like our go-to. For anybody who works in public relations, it's a really valuable tool to find different reporters or different publications and really helps you narrow down on certain topics and areas that are valuable for your clients. That's one we use. I think it's pretty limited. We use Slack. Obviously, that's the go-to communication tool. And we use Asana for some of our project management.
Excellent. Yeah, I've used this on it. I'm now an Airtable convert. I'm going like deep and hard with Airtable. It's just blowing my mind, and it's almost a podcast in itself. My rhapsody about Airtable. So
Oh, we like Asana, but it's not intuitive really. So I'm all about hearing about Airtable. So on, side combo, we can do that because I've used Monday, and even Monday is a little. It's not as intuitive to me either. So anything that really feels, I don't know. I have my own systems too. We use Asana, but then I'm like, I just have my own little to do on a Google Doc, right? That I usually refer to more often than Asana.
everybody's got their secret yellow legal pad, whatever that looks like for them. Oh yes, of course I use the fancy app, but it's my secret like yellow legal pad over here.
Yeah, because there's almost something ritualistic about it.
Well, it feels good to write things down.
And checklist, crossing things out it's my love language.
Which, speaking of, oh my gosh. So again, back to the light stalking. You do have a very Leslie Nope energy about you. She is my spirit animal. That is who I use every time I have to use a GIF, however one says it these days.
That is honestly the biggest compliment anyone's ever given to me because I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed.
We're like round 3 through the entire Parks and Rec seasons with our kids. It's like third time watching it through, and I love a binder. I love the enthusiasm. It makes me so happy.
For sure. Like positive, but also not positive to a fault, more so just like, we can do this, guys.
Yes. So I appreciate that about you, Kat. Okay, as we wrap up, there's a
Mhm.
question that I ask everybody. Imagine yourself standing in the middle of Times Square. You will not be hit by a cab. Everything's safe. You can stand there in the middle of all the bright, sparkly billboards, and the
Oof.
biggest one is for you. And on that billboard, you get to share a message with female leaders. What would you want to share with them?
Oh my goodness. Honestly, this is I'm just like stealing from somebody else. But it has done wonders for me just to like have something so simple play back in my head anytime I get frustrated or anytime I get down on myself. And it really is just having that. It would be like maybe like a burnt orange color just to catch people's attention and also because my hair color. And it would be work hard and be nice to people. Really, honestly. Or in another way, challenge yourself, challenge others, be good, do good, work hard, or something like that. Like simple things. Because what I've also noticed is like, again, as much as I talk a lot, simplicity goes so far, and especially when you're communicating, and especially when you're trying to get a point across. And so something like that, as direct as that, can go really far when someone's having a tough day and they don't want to be elaborated to. They just want a direct comment that might change their day or their perspective.
I love it. Okay, last thing, because we talked about it at the very beginning. Go-to karaoke song.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So it depends on the mood. But if I'm with a theater crew, if I'm with like people who understand, it's all that jazz. 1,000%.
I'm gonna roll a Fosse shoulder right now. I'm rolling a Fosse shoulder.
Oh, for sure. Jazz hands. If I'm with a Disney crew, it's Part of
Oh.
Your World with, yeah, Little Mermaid. And then if I'm just feeling sultry, it's a little Amy Winehouse.
Oh.
Sorry, you asked for one, but and then I like to rock. So it's why am I brain farting? Call me.
Oh, nice. Nice. I love that you got a bunch in your pocket. You got, like, a whole array. So when we have our next backyard karaoke sing-along and we need to mix it up, we'll just get your playlist and we'll run through it.
Oh, I legit have a playlist on my phone, 1,000%. I thought I
Oh
lost it one
god.
time. Like I thought 'cause I updated my phone and I thought I lost it, and I genuinely was sad. Like I was sad for a few hours.
Well, thank you again for spending your time with me today. I'm so appreciative. I've learned a ton having the opportunity to talk to you, to learn from you, for all of the sharing that you've done. Thank you so much.
Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I wholeheartedly reciprocate it. I can't wait to continue to have conversations with you. I think I'm going to learn so much. And I love having women like you in my life. It's wonderful. It's such a blessing.
I agree. Well, we'll talk again soon.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you for joining us this week. To view the complete show notes and all the links mentioned in today's episode, visit mygoodwoman.com. Before you go, make sure you follow or subscribe to the podcast so you can receive fresh episodes when they drop. And if you're enjoying My Good Woman, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Reviews are one of the major ways that Apple ranks their podcasts, so even though it only takes a few seconds, it really does make a difference. This episode was produced by me and Kathleen O'Shaughnessy. Thank you again for joining me, Dawn Andrews, in this episode of My Good Woman.